everyone, and welcome back to All About Sports. Today we're going to do the top 5 teams heading into week 16, or you could say the top 5 teams after week 15. Just to give you some reference to last week's, my list last week had number 5, the Colts, number 4, the Packers, number 3, the Saints, number 2, the Bills, and number 1, the Chiefs. So we will see what my list brings this week. I'm your host, Luca Vitale, and joining me today, Ethan Polak and Nick Winkelman. How you all doing?
Doing well.
Doing fine.
All right. My top 5 teams heading into week 16, or the top 5 teams after week 15. I am ready to be scrutinized. This list is fluid. We all know that. But let's head on to number 5 on the list, the Cleveland Browns. Yes, they have officially made my top 5 list. They lost to the Ravens by the skin of their teeth a week ago. Then they beat the Giants on Sunday Night Football, and that's a stout defense, by the way. Baker Mayfield has been balling lately, completing about 71% of his passes in the month of December. You got a running game in Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Great passing game in Jarvis Landry, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Austin Hooper, Rashad Higgins. And let's not forget something. They're 10-4. The Steelers are 11-3. The Cleveland Browns can actually steal the division crown from the Pittsburgh Steelers if they keep this up. So let's go to number 4 on the list, the New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees just returned from injury. Yes, he struggled at first, but he settled in. They went up against the Chiefs, so let's not forget that. They are a well-balanced team in terms of defense and a running game. That defense has caused havoc all season long. You got dudes on there like Marshawn Lattimore. You got Cameron Jordan. You got Malcolm Jenkins. You got a running game in Latavius Murray. You got Alvin Kamara. And you also got great receivers in Emmanuel Sanders. Michael Thomas is hurt right now, but he'll be back in the postseason. Jared Cook, Traquan Smith. Even Taysom Hill is a gadget player, but they're a number 4 team on the list right now. Let's go to number 3 on the list, the Green Bay Packers. They are 24-6 under Matt LaFleur. That is insane. Aaron Rodgers completing about 70% of his passes, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, flinging the football effectively, just extending plays outside of the pocket, scrambling outside of the pocket. You got receivers in Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard, MBS, Tanyan Jr., whatever his name is. He's very sensational as well. The defense still has question marks with the linebacker position, even though they've been improving lately, but they've gone up against a bit weaker teams lately. Running game's going to go with Aaron Jones. They got a legitimate shot to win the NFC itself. Aaron Rodgers can win MVP over Patrick Mahomes. This is insane. They're a number 3 team right now. Let's go to number 2, the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen right now is he's playing out of his mind right now. He's able to extend plays using that mobility of his, flinging the football, completing about 69% of his passes, 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. You have a running game in Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. You got great wide receivers in Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, Gabriel Davis. Their losses this season have only been against a blowout earlier in the season against the Tennessee Titans, the Chiefs, and then basically a Hail Mary against the Cardinals when Kyler Murray broke their hearts. But let's just say they pounced on the Steelers, and then they pounced on the Denver Broncos not too long ago. And let's go to the best team in the league. We know who that is, the Kansas City Chiefs. Who else? I mean, it's the reigning MVP, Super Bowl champion, Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs themselves. They basically have to find a way to lose, which they never do. They were on their C game when they played the Saints, and they still won. And their offense is just so potent. You got Tyreek Hill, you got Travis Kelce, McCole Hardman, Sammy Watkins, and there you go. Number 5, the Browns. Number 4, the Saints. Number 3, the Packers. Number 2, the Bills. And number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. Ethan, what are your thoughts?
Very interesting that you let the Browns finally make your list. I mean, I have about a little issue, I think, with the 3 and 4 spot, but the rest I think are looking pretty well. I mean, in terms of teams that are hot and who are not, Kansas City's definitely number 1, and they've been number 1 for as long as you've been pretty much doing this legendary list. And the Bills are one of the hotter teams in the NFL right now. I am still a doubter of the Bills' postseason hopes, but for now they are hot. and they are playing very well. So they still, I believe, deserve that number 2 spot. For this number 3 and number 4, I still am not buying the Packers. I found this stat actually this week that the Packers, their record they're pretty good so far. Although their biggest issue is their basically resume, because they've beaten one team over 500. And let's go check on another team. The Bengals. Guess how many times they've beaten over 500? Oh wait, 2 of them. The Bengals have more games over 500 than the Packers. And I mean, for a team that's supposed to be a legitimate contender, they gotta beat legitimate contenders to prove themselves. And one of their most of the games that they played, yeah, they have a few decent wins this season. But I feel like that games like the Colts, where they are above 500, that the Packers ended up choking. And other games that they have the rest of the season, we'll see if they're able to prove that they are a legitimate contender. But since they're in the NFC North, where there's really nobody, no offense to your Bears and everybody else in there, there's real contenders there. And then you have basically the AFC South division that they played, which besides the Titans and the Colts, there's still nobody there. So the Packers have had an easy schedule, and I feel like the Packers should be at least number 4, because I trust the Saints more, because they put up a better fight, I think, than the Packers would against the Chiefs, because the Saints lost by 3 points to the Chiefs. They were missing Cameron Jordan, who got ejected for throwing a punch. So that was their best defender that they have on the team. So I feel like all those aspects put together, and especially since it was Drew Brees' first game back, what happens when this team was fully healthy and ready? They really could have been able to beat the Chiefs. And I felt like they should be higher. And they should be higher and more respected than this Packers team. So I felt like maybe putting them up to number 3 and number 4. But of course, the Browns, they are hot. I as much as you got to hate on them, and for at least hate on them in terms of basically, are they legit or not? But they have been playing very well lately, and you got to respect it. But they do eventually play, or what is it? They play the Jets this week. They got the Steelers, I think, on week 17. That'll determine if the Browns do end up winning and the Steelers end up losing to the Colts this week. They could be playing for the division title, which no one would have thought. And if Browns would end up winning, the Steelers would go on their fifth loss in a row, which would not be good, or not look good headed into the playoffs. But that all depends. But for now, I think besides the Packers and the Saints, I think your list is respectable for this week.
Well, let me just tell you this about the Packers before I give it to Nick. Last time I checked, the Green Bay Packers do not make the schedule. So they can only win the games that they are supposed to win. And they happen to play the Titans coming up. So they will be tested against Derrick Henry. That defense will be tested. Tannehill has not been playing bad either. He's been playing really good lately. I mean, that Davis guy on the Titans, and then you got A.J. Brown to worry about. Those are 2 to worry about on that offense. So they're going to be tested. So we'll see what happens. The list is fluid. Saints got lower because they lost to the Chiefs. So that's the only reason. Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to disagree, but I kind of have pretty much the exact same list, so there's not much to disagree with. Although, I had to leave the Bills below the Chiefs because there's nothing proving otherwise right now. But honestly, in the playoffs, I would pick the Bills over the Chiefs if they get the chance to face each other. I think.
Let me tell you this. I will tell you this right now. The Bills are the second best team in the AFC. I will say that. I mean, they are, in my opinion, Ethan and I were talking about this yesterday, actually. I think the Bills right now are the only team in the AFC that could beat the Chiefs. They have a legitimate shot. They do. They have improved so much.
To beat the Chiefs, but I do think the Bills have the best shot for sure. I think the Colts playing on their best game have a chance to beat the Chiefs. Honestly, even the Dolphins. I mean, the Dolphins are a little inconsistent, but when they're at their best, they are a force to be reckoned with. So, I mean, there's less of a chance for those two. But I do agree the Bills have the best chance of beating the Chiefs of anyone in the AFC, which basically means anyone in the NFL, because the NFC is not on its best year right now. What else can I say about the list? Packers, I think there's a chance they go down week 17. Bears offense has been keyed in. The defense has not. If we can get the defense back and the offense can stay playing at the level it's been playing at, the Packers should be scared. Saints, they've got their NFC South wrapped up almost, or do they have it for sure?
Well, they already beat the Bucks twice and stomped on them. So let's take that as a thought here, because I don't have much faith left in the Bucks after they got stomped on twice.
Yeah, so it's basically Saints Packers fighting for that 1 seed. And don't forget, if the Packers do end up losing to the Bears, that means the Bears are in the playoffs as the 7 and the Packers are in as the 2, and they have to face them in week.
You're asking for a prayer, though. You're asking for a prayer.
All right. Also, that is something to be very hopeful for, and something that could happen. As actually, even Ethan can kind of reference this as the Miami Miracle. So it would be a miracle. We would call it the Chicago Miracle in this case, but the Arizona Cardinals are going to have to be stopped. So let's not forget that. I know they play the Rams and then the San Francisco 49ers as the remainder of their schedule. The 49ers right now are in a quarterback mess. Nick Mullins is out for the rest of the season. So CJ Beathard is going to start. And then I think they got Josh Rosen as their backup quarterback for him. And then the Rams are just lost. I feel like they are just lost completely. So we'll see what happens there.
This is true.
Yeah, they fell. I mean, although I think people, when games like this happen, I think people jump off the bandwagon too quickly. I think the Rams will be back. It's just that, yeah, they dudded against the Jets, but maybe it was because of Bill Belichick telling Sean McVay to choke the game so that Trevor Lawrence didn't have to play for the Jets, and instead he's going to likely go play for the Jags if things turn out well. But that's just some conspiracy theories.
Well, I don't really necessarily think that's any way better to play in Jacksonville. But let me tell you this. I will say this, though. My stance has been consistent year in and year out with the Los Angeles Rams, okay? It is Jared Goff that is holding them back. I have no question marks regardless of the Rams' offense. They have a great running game. They have a great O-line. They have a great defense. They have great receivers. It is the quarterback. I don't believe in Jared Goff. He's too inconsistent for someone that's paid over $100 million. When you are paid over $100 million, you are expected to show up with your A game every single day. He showed up with his F game against the Jets. That's how simple that was to me.
Yeah, I mean, football's wild. There's a reason there's only ever been 2 teams to go 0-16, you know. It's stuff like this happens, you know. The Rams they're still a good team. They can still go in, they can beat Arizona. All can be fine. If the Bears miss by 1 game, I'll rewatch DeAndre Hopkins catch and the end of the Lions game for hours on end, crying, thinking about those 2 moments. But yeah, so that's that. And then so the other team on the list was the Browns. They're hot right now. They've got a momentum, they've got a good chance, and obviously with a chance to take the division that week 4, week 5 people were talking about as the strongest division, maybe that's solid. You know, they were being thought of as pretenders, the fakers. I think if there's any fakers in that division, it's the Ravens right now, and the Browns here have a chance to win.
Well, the Ravens are fakers? Are you serious? If anyone's a faker in that division, it's the Steelers. I don't think they could beat a single team right now in the AFC because that's how bad they are. I mean, they could have wrapped up the division Monday night by beating the lowly Cincinnati Bengals, who are starting a 3rd-string quarterback, whoever Ryan Finley is. But you lose to that team. And now you really have to be in your A+ game these last 2 games against the Colts and the Browns. That's scary. If I'm Pittsburgh right now, I am looking back at that Cincinnati game. I'm looking back right now. Washington, I understand because they are in a hot streak. They have a great defense. We see that. The Bills have a great offense, and their defense has improved lately. But there is no excuse as to why you lost the Cincinnati Bengals when Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow were not even playing.
Yeah, no, that's true. That was a bad game. The Steelers, I'm not ready to write them off as fakers, though. I think that with these 3 losses, they're now about as good as their record suggests. They finally had to 11-3. They go 11-5 at the worst. They're definitely a playoff team. They deserve to make the playoffs. If they go 11-5, lose the division, and make it in as a wild card, I don't see how anyone can argue whether or not they deserved to be a wild card team. I mean, give me give me all the teams that you think are better than the Steelers. Well, the Raiders are probably going to be the first team to miss out. I think the Steelers are better than the Raiders.
Yes, the Raiders are something that they're just disappointing year after year in and year out. We see that. I mean, Josh Jacobs has just, I don't know what happened to him this year, but something bad happened. He can't run the football any longer. But as right now, Nick, in my opinion, I just don't see a team the Steelers can beat. Everyone else in that AFC right now is just too strong. I see the Dolphins beating the Steelers because that's how good the Dolphins have been. They weren't even supposed to be in the playoffs this year, and yet they will make the playoffs unless the Ravens somehow happen to break their hopes. That's it. Otherwise, I do not see why the Dolphins cannot beat the Steelers. That's the only reason.
I mean, the Steelers are Juju's no longer allowed to do the dance on the logo anymore, so they might be able to end their curse against at least on their losing streak, and we'll see if they can be able to knock off the Colts since they are going to be in Heinz Field. But that all depends on what we're going to be hoping for this week. And if you think if the Steelers do end up beating the Colts, will they make it back in your list?
If they beat the Colts, no.
Yeah.
It depends how they show up. It depends how they show up. If they show up and they happen to win by 2 points, no. You have to show up with your A+ game. I want to see the Steelers that I saw when they were 11-0. That's the Steelers I want to see, not the Steelers that showed up against the Washington football team, the Bills, or the Cincinnati Bengals. I want to see the Steelers that pounced on the Browns earlier in the season. That's the Steelers team I want to see.
I think Colts Steelers, in my opinion, it's a big game. I feel like whoever wins that game should be seen as maybe the third threat in the AFC, right? If we're thinking Chiefs, Bills, winner of this game, I think that's
fair.
Colts and Steelers are both legitimate contenders. Colts have had a little bit more to prove themselves with, but I mean, don't forget they beat the Titans, turned right around 2 weeks later and absolutely blew it to them, So you've got a lot going on there, but it's a heavyweight matchup for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Well, that will end this episode of All About Sports. Ethan and Nick, thanks for joining me. Everyone, thanks for tuning in for All About Sports, and we'll see you around.